There are lots of words in this question, and apologies, I've kind of crammed it all onto this small screen. This is actually quite, it's fitted really a whole page originally, but I wanted to have all the information in one place and minimize the amount of space being taken up. So we've got a scatter diagram from a census, and it's comparing the population of different local authorities with the proportion who travel to work by bus, minibus, or coach. Samuel suggests that with a few exceptions, the data points in the diagram show that the local authorities with larger populations generally have higher proportions of workers traveling by bus, minibus, or coach. And we can see that over here and here. That's definitely happening, isn't it? And it's not just a number, it's a proportion. But then it says on the diagram, draw a ring around each of the data points that Samuel might regard as an exception. So this is the clearest exception. We've got a really big population, but a low proportion. And then that one, the proportion is also very small, and this one here. So these three are the main ones that stand out. You would get accepted any of these three as well in the mark scheme, but it's mainly these three that we're looking for. On to part B, Jasper suggested it's possible to separate these local authorities into more than one group with different relationships between population proportion travelling to work by bus, minibus, or coach. Discuss Jasper's suggestion referring to the data and how differences between the local authorities could explain the patterns seen in this diagram. This is pretty tough, I think. If you've done some work on a large data set, I'd be surprised actually if you'd even encountered this. So trying to deal with it is tough in a 3 marks in this time situation. Um, but I'll talk about kind of the sorts of things I thought about, and then I'll talk about the mark scheme. We like the we basically got a hint in part A, and that was, and sorry, I forgot to say that actually this is part A here. I got rid of that. Apologies. Um, there seems to be a sort of positive correlation going on. As the population increases, the proportion going by bus and minibus seems to also increase. So that could be situations um, where we have, like in cities, for example, a big city is going to have a much better set of like services, buses, and so on. So that's why the proportion is going to increase. Okay, so that's something to maybe write about. And then we seem to have this a few districts like over here, where even though the population is as the population is increasing, the proportion taking the bus and so on is staying the same. In fact, I'm going to make that a solid green ring. So as long as you try and identify, some different subsets and explain them logically, you should get some credit in this question. I'm going to look at them, tell you about the mark scheme now. So they say the dotted ring, that's this blue one for us. There are metropolitan districts which have good infrastructure, so they have high proportions of traveling by bus. Doesn't really explain why it would increase as the population increases necessarily, but I can see what they're getting at. And then the solid ring, for me, us the green, there are probably large um, unitary authorities which are not urban. So we're talking about like a rural kind of area, for example, and then um, they don't have good bus services, and so as the population increases, the proportion doesn't either. And I didn't think to talk about this, but the unringed points are maybe a mix of small unitary authorities and non-metropolitan districts, which are difficult to tell apart. Okay, I think that's all I got to say on this. That is a challenge, part B, but that's my best explanation of it. Try to split it up into, some separate parts and write something along these lines about them.